Evening. This is the January 12th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. I guess we only have two agenda items tonight. One is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting on July 11th, and the other is to review the 1101 Big Oak Road project proposal. We have three of the five Planning Commission members present: Tony Bush, myself, Adrian Costello, and Tajander Gill. And Russ Brook is on the line, but he's traveling, so it'd be difficult for him to participate. Okay, so I guess we'll move to the first agenda item, the meeting minutes from July 11th. Does anyone want to make a motion to pass the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the July 11th meeting.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any comments?
No.
Nope. All right. I vote in favor of passing. Aye. Okay, that passes 3-0. Okay. All right, now the second item is a review of the 1101 Big Oak Road project proposal.
We also have Dawn,
Oh, Dawn is in too?
or she's gonna be in.
Okay. I was like, Dawn Stern is also going to be present in a minute. Here she is. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, sorry about that.
It's okay. We just passed 3-0 the minutes. I guess I'll ask you, did you have any comments on the minutes?
No, I wasn't there, but I did read them, so.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so now we'll move on to the second item. Jim?
Okay, you have in front of you tonight the major subdivision for 1101 Big Oak Road. And the applicant is here to make their presentation on the project and explain what they're doing and what they're looking to do.
Right. Good evening. I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Triumph Construction Group. As Jim said, the application that's in front of you this evening is for discussion purposes only. No recommendation is being sought this evening. The intention is to review and resubmit revised plans based on the review comments that have been received to date. And so far, we've had review letters issued by Andy's office, Bucks County Planning Commission, EAC, Fire Marshal, Jim's office, and probably one other that escapes me at the moment, but
The traffic engineer.
that's right. Joe Fiacco, we've had a review from Joe's office and separately from the Transportation Advisory Committee as well. So I think we've received all of the different department reviews, both inside and outside the township. As I said, the intention is to revise and resubmit the plans to address those review comments, but we thought since you haven't yet seen the plans publicly, that we'd appear tonight, just walk everybody through what's proposed and solicit any additional comments beyond those which are outlined in the review comments. To my immediate left is Kristen Holmes from Holmes Cunningham, the project engineer, and to Chris's left is Terry Nardone, who is a principal with Triumph Construction Group. So, and Jim, I don't know if you want to put a plan up for, I don't know if you have it on the screen or not. I think you do. So you want to wait a minute. Okay, so the site in question is a little over 6 acres. And it has frontage on both Big Oak Road as well as Elbow Lane. So the plan contemplates at the moment, focusing first on the Big Oak Road portion. There are 3 proposed new single-family homes. that would take access to Big Oak. Presently, Lot 1 would take access by itself from an existing driveway on Big Oak, and the other two lots, lots 2 and 3, would access Big Oak Road from a shared use common driveway. The other 3 lots that are proposed take access from Elbow Lane in the back. As you can see, each of those lots would have their own separate driveway accessing Elbow Lane. The job would be served by both public water and public sewer that are located in the beds of the streets upon which they abut. Stormwater would be managed in the traditional way. There is a larger basin in front of Lot 2 running parallel to Big Oak Road as depicted in that larger green area there. And as I said, the review letters are fairly straightforward. We understand Kristen has had a chance to go through them, and we don't really have a whole lot of question about the nature of the review comments. So there will be the typical waivers that at some point we can review, whether you choose to do that tonight or at a subsequent meeting. But I don't think the waiver list is going to change based on the review comments and the responses that we intend to incorporate into the new plans that Holmes Cunningham will submit in the next week or so. But so that's essentially what is happening here. One question that has come up, and there seems to be a differing opinion about it, is whether or not the existing driveway that services Lot 1 on Big Oak Road should be retained, or whether or not that access to that lot should be also accessed from the common driveway. Your Transportation Advisory Committee recommends the consolidation of those driveways. However, your traffic consultant does not. He thinks that that arrangement that we propose on the plan is fairly common and traditional in the neighborhood, and doesn't believe there's any value in combining that third lot to share in that access. There's the obvious concern about tree disturbance, which we understand. We're obviously acutely aware of what your ordinance limitation is for tree disturbance, and our intention is to comply with it, to limit that disturbance to the allowable. And more information has been requested of the extent to which and size of the trees that would be removed. Kristen and her office in the process of doing those additional detailed studies and calculations to be resubmitted. So it's probably premature to talk about the implications of that until the more detailed plans or calcs are submitted and everybody can take another look at it.
I'm sorry, Ed, can you get closer to the microphone, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
And Jim, I don't know if there's any other issues threshold issues you want to bring to everybody's attention, but that is pretty much where we are at the moment in terms of the 6 lots. 3 are accessible from Big Oak. The other 3 would take access from Elbow.
I think you touched on the major items other than anything the planning commission or the public comes up with. I do have one question, maybe a short circuit, everyone. I hope you don't mind. For the 2 lots that are on Elbow Lane, you sort of have a little bit of woods in between them. Would it be possible to eliminate that little sliver of woods and then maybe preserve more woods on the side of one of the properties or another? Just throwing that out there.
If Kristen understands the question, fine. You're talking between lots 4 and 6?
Between 5 and 6.
5 and 6?
Along that property line, you have a little bit of woods there, and I'm not sure what type of trees you have in that area. If it's worth saving that little bit, or maybe just having the area between those 2 homes open and putting more trees on the sides or front or wherever.
And partly to answer that question, and I know in regards to the required setbacks for the buildings, they come off of the natural resource protection areas. So in order to maintain the side yard setback for each of those lots on 5 and 6, we've taken it from the limit of the woodlands there. We can certainly look at it. We do have the detailed tree survey back that shows all of those trees, and we've looked at trying to tweak some things to be able to preserve individual trees as much as possible. Actually, on lot 6, we're probably going to be straightening that driveway out because there is a larger tree towards Elbow Lane that we're going to look to preserve along there. So that may be adverse to actually what you just presented, in the sense that there are some larger trees within the middle of that lot, and keeping the driveway towards the side lot line of that would help to save and preserve some of those trees.
Thank you. It's just something I just caught my eye that I thought you might want to look at.
Yep, we can certainly look at it.
Kristen, I know we had spoken about this and had a discussion about the tree disturbance and the location of the proposed utilities going to the homes. You indicated you were going to look into maybe relocating the utility services for the individual homes down the driveway to kind of get that, to address our comment number 1 in our review letter. Have you had a
Yes.
chance to look at that?
So we would look to do that as we discussed in regards to bringing the utilities down either along the edge of the driveway itself or within the driveway, so that we are not creating any additional disturbance to the woodlands line.
Okay, the other thing, and this just kind of popped into my mind here. We've got the level spreaders for basins for the underground stormwater systems at lots 4, 5, and 6 that create a little bit of additional disturbance. Is it possible to just have a bubble up spreader on top of the system itself? And then you'd be able to preserve a little bit of area instead of having to pipe it to a location a little bit further down grade and have a level spreader.
We can look at that.
You know, I understand you'd have to redo some stormwater calculations in order to look at that, but that's just a
Yeah.
thought.
Yes, we can look at it. I believe we were trying to get to a lower elevation for some of those discharge points in order to allow that to flow out of the system, but we can certainly take a look at that. We did already include the area surrounding that level spreader as disturbance to the woodlands in the initial calculations and submissions, but yes, we can look into shortening that.
Any planning commission members have any questions, comments? Okay, Tony?
Just in looking at the, I'm sorry. In looking at the EAC's comments, they were
Whose
pretty,
comments, Tony?
the EAC, yeah. It looks like they were pretty concerned about, I guess, lots 3 through 6.
Yeah, one's in the back on Elbow.
Pardon?
One's on Elbow Lane.
Yeah, yeah, and specifically that they have setbacks of 16 feet or less to the woodlands. And they observed that there was no space between the driveway surface and some of the protected woodlands. And they basically threw out the question of what can be done to preserve that land going forward after the developer is done with this project.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the comments there is whether or not we can establish conservation easement on certain of the areas that are not going to be disturbed as part of our construction. And I think that's a question that we can certainly consider to further protect or preserve those areas that we're not going to disturb, nor are we permitted to disturb. So.
Right. I guess just, typical homeowner, 16 feet, they're going to start clearing out trees. They're going to,
Understood.
you know, do whatever they're going to
Mhm.
want to do there. So, um,
I guess one thing to note is that, this site is located, if anyone's familiar with the Freeman's Farm development that came through several years ago, this is located a couple of properties to the west of that, and across from Charles Bain Middle School on Big Oak Road. There is an existing bike path, I believe, that fronts along Big Oak Road, in front of lot 1 and 2. And I believe it's the intention for that bike path to remain and be maintained, correct?
Correct.
Andy, I had a question for you. Your comment letter talked about only one of the 6 waivers that the applicant was seeking. And did you have any comments or thoughts about the other 5?
I'd have to find where the other 5 are listed.
You want us to go through each of them, Tony?
No, I'm asking if Andy had any comments on
Sure,
them.
and we can talk about each one if you like.
Actually, they may just want to go through them all right
Yeah,
now so
whatever.
everyone
Yeah,
understands
okay.
what they are.
Okay, and I think we can hand out so everybody has it. We updated the waiver letter as of today to address one other item that we'll talk about. But in terms of the waivers that are presently being considered, the first is to permit the combination of preliminary and final plans. Again, that is one that I think the merit of that will depend on what Andy and others think of the quality of the plans once they are revised and resubmitted. I think everybody here knows that that is not an unusual request so long as the detail contained in those plans otherwise meets the requirements for a final plan submission. The second waiver, again, fairly normal, quote unquote, and that is a waiver from requiring all existing resources within 500 feet be shown. Typically, we address that issue by providing a recent aerial photograph that would provide that level of detail without having to go out and do individual property surveys on, of all those kinds of resources. The third is a request to avoid having to provide an impact statement for properties that are already developed on adjacent parcels. Our intention is to do a by right subdivision. We're not seeking any zoning variances. The intention is to fully comply. So again, I'm not sure you guys can comment on that. We are doing an URSAM, so any other issues that would otherwise be required in that section, we are going to comply with. There's a request to, and I'll defer to Jim on this, alter the submission package of the number of plans and reports that get submitted and the size. I think we've been doing that regularly, but I think your saldo continues to call out the older requirements, but however you guys want to do it is fine. So.
Yeah, in the age of electronics, and in order to save an inordinate amount of paper, both that the applicant has to produce and that we have to store somewhere, this is something I strongly request that they request, because it just makes sense from the township's perspective.
Right. The next item I already just spoke about, it's sort of an overlapping section in the saldo about we are providing URSAM. So that addresses, I think, that waiver about not having to go too far beyond the site boundaries itself. The next one is, it sounds more ominous than it is. we're asking technically for a waiver from having to provide the required number of street trees on Big Oak and Elbow, only because utility interference is going to inhibit our ability. We'll be happy to plant them elsewhere. And we're happy, as we've done this before with Jim in his office, whatever they think we can physically accommodate along the property frontages, we'll certainly do. And if there's a recommendation to figure out another location on the site to plant other trees, we'll do that as well. So it's a waiver from providing a specific number of street trees on Big Oak or Elbow only because of physical limitations. I think the next one we should defer, and that deals with the number of replacement trees that the project would otherwise be required. As you heard Kristen say, we're going to provide updated calcs, and we'll all have the next time we meet better numbers and a better understanding of what really is going on. And we'll be talking about that as we have with other projects as well. So,
Mr. Murphy, before you go further,
yes.
when they do the recalculation, is there going to be some sort of arborist that's going to look to see if there are any trees
Dead, diseased, and
damaged or
yeah,
diseased by emerald ash? I'm only saying because that has come up in other matters.
Right.
and I don't know if that would be pertinent to this.
it's always going to be pertinent in the calculation. So yes, the answer is yes. And I guess the only other one that we haven't talked about is, and again, it's just a function of the geometry of the property, and that is, if you look at lot 3, the where it starts to turn at Elbow Lane, there's an issue of the lot line not being perpendicular, exactly perpendicular to the road right of way. So all the other lot lines are perpendicular. That one corner happens not to be. So it's more of a technical thing than anything else. So, so I think that's, in summary, the nature of the waivers. Again, I don't think that's likely to change with the submission of revised plans, but they might, and we'll revisit them again. And I know Jim has been aware of what the waivers have been, and he's encouraged the one about trying to reduce the amount of paper that comes in the door, but others as well. So I think that.
So
Go
to
ahead.
answer your question, Tony, as Mr. Murphy had said that they would suggest deferring item number 6, which is the waiver from the replacement trees. I think it might be applicable to defer number 5 as well, the street trees.
Right.
We can see what kind of existing vegetation is along Elbow Lane and what the condition of that is, what the species of those existing trees are in Elbow Lane. It might be the township's preference to put street trees in replacement of the existing vegetation along Elbow Lane.
You're talking about deferrals when the formal submission is given.
The
because
next time around. Yeah.
You're you're intending to proceed with both preliminary and final.
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yeah. And when everyone agrees the plans are in a shape ready for consideration, that would be when that night would be the night you would make a recommendation. Understood.
And then I would not have any objections to any of the other waivers stated.
Right.
Barbara, for the members of the audience and for those of us on the planning commission, could you explain a little bit what you meant when you were talking about having an arborist go with the applicant to look at trees that may be damaged by ash disease? And how does that factor into the overall calculation into number of trees that need to be replaced or removed from
So
the site?
in at least one other instance, if not more, I'm aware that when there are trees on property that are diseased by the emerald ash, I think it's borer.
Or, yes,
Ash borer beetle. Yeah.
Borer or beetle, it's very costly to have the tree removed. So generally speaking, an applicant will come in and say, as part of the land development process, they will at their cost remove that tree to prevent the disease from spreading to other trees. As a result, the township EAC has been inclined to recommend that they be given credit for not having to make a direct replacement tree or trees on the basis that they have eliminated a diseased tree that could negatively affect the rest of the woodlands or the rest of the trees that are replaced. So that's why I meant about asking about if the calculation would include that.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
Tony, hey guys,
Hey, Dan.
on the Emerald Ash Borer thing, it ends up having to be a formal tree survey that's conducted so that they can identify individual trees and species and size, caliper, so that they're not, usually with woodlands, you can look at a bunch of them and say, there's a certain density of trees of a certain caliper qualifying as woodlands. In this case, when they're looking to say it's a very specific disease tree, there's a little bit more of a hurdle to overcome to make sure the onus is on the developer, the applicant, to prove it, not just say, yeah, it's disease, we're going to cut it down and we get credit for it. So we have to be careful about that. Not saying that any specific person would do that, we just have to be careful because that can sometimes be leveraged. So we want to make sure that they are held accountable.
That's, Mr. Grenier, that's why I asked if it would be a certified arborist making that determination.
Okay. Anything else, Tony?
Not right now.
Okay. Janitor, Don?
I had one question on the SAFE report on the traffic advisor. They talked about a number 2, a fee for a traffic impact fee of about 19,000. That's going to be included too in there. Was that still something that's ongoing, Jim?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, Jim did.
If I may, the township has an ordinance that requires that all new development account for the new weekday afternoon PM peak trips that are generated by a development. And they're subject to a traffic impact fee that was based on a township-wide traffic study the township did about 30 years ago that established what improvements were needed by the township in order to make the traffic in the township better. At that time, a fee was established and is increased every year by the inflationary rate. And the current rate for this service area, which is service area 2, there are 3 of them in the township, by the way, is the $3,226. And that's multiplied by the 6 new trips that are generated by the house. Although actually, that may be in error. It should be 5 times the 3,226 because the one house that's already there is already generating traffic and therefore they don't have to pay the fee for that. So the number is slightly lower.
Jim, it may not be a question for today, but you said that study was done 30 years ago?
Yes.
I only raise that because that's right near BAME, obviously, and the other middle schools. And I think just today, a lot more people are driving their kids to school than ever before. So the traffic's totally different on that road than it was 30 years ago, as it may be elsewhere in the town. And I'm not an issue for this applicant, but I'm just wondering, is there any township-wide initiative to revisit that traffic plan?
We have discussed revisiting that traffic plan. That traffic plan, when it was done, took into account all the traffic that was there back when they did the study and accounted for the ultimate build out of the entire township, all the vacant properties, such as this one with only 1 house and 6 acres. And they estimated how many new trips would be generated over the years. Based on that, they came up with different areas that needed improvements. And those areas were allotted a fee based on that. One of the ones I know the township just got a grant for the traffic signal at Pine Grove and Big Oak Road. I believe that's in service area 3, if I'm not mistaken. And that actually is one of the items that was listed on the study that was done 30 years ago. So we're finally getting around to doing it after a long period of time. and monies that were paid in for those developments in that area pay towards that.
I guess you could say better late than never.
Better late than never.
So Jim, this is not directly across from the middle school, is it?
No,
No, it's across from Derbyshire.
Okay.
Yeah, where Derbyshire comes out, when you come out on the Big Oak Road, to the left is like a little horse farm. It's about 5 to 10 acres.
Right, right.
Then just to the right of that, you'll see a little bit of land, and then there's a little red house, I think it is. That's there, and it's that piece of property, and it goes all the way back to the Falls Township line, which is over here on the right side of the page. And it has frontage on Elbow Lane and also Big Oak Road.
Okay. I'm just curious, like, if is everyone done? I'm just curious, is the 6 acres you said this is, how does that split out by lot?
So there's 6 lots on there. They average 0.9 acres apiece, but there's slight variation between each of them.
Okay, yeah, because it looks like the lot number 3 is probably gonna be like 1.5 acres or more.
And that's because that's a flag lot, so that one has to be larger to meet the flag lot requirements.
Got it. And the other thing, this is a personal thing. I don't, when I see a shared driveway, it just makes me think that we're trying to squeeze something in that the geometry makes it difficult. And I just look at this on the back, and what, was there ever a thought to reconfiguring the lot line between 3 and 4 and bringing the driveway for lot 3 out to Elbow Lane rather than Big Oak?
We can look at that. I mean, I will say the intention and the reasons for us bringing it out to Big Oak was to a couple reasons. The share drive is to just reduce the amount of curb cuts along Big Oak, which is a larger road than Elbow Lane, and be able to maintain that existing driveway and then provide the one new, and also to help minimize tree disturbance and tree removal, because on that portion of lot 3, we placed that house purposely in order to minimize trees. There's a clearing there, and most of the frontage of Big Oak Road is also clear and open. So we've strategically placed each of these dwellings to minimize the tree removal. Even on Elbow Lane, there is one curb cut with a driveway there today that's being used by a tree removal mulch business. So lot 4 was placed within that clearing of the canopy there in order to minimize the tree disturbance and use that same driveway.
Anyway, like I said, I know there's tons of different things you got to consider, and I'm just looking at the black and white sketch, but it just seems to me like eliminating a driveway that potentially has 2 cars coming in and out at the same time, you know, or somebody entertains at their house, whatever, on a busy road versus just separating it to its own separate entrance seems.
look at it.
Yeah, that's all. That just jumped out at me. I didn't hear exactly what Tajander had asked. And I just wanted to make sure I understood the waiver, the 3rd waiver request.
I was asking about in the safe highway engineering report, number 2, the traffic impact fee. That's what I was asking a question to Joe.
Yeah,
about.
I remember, and I heard a comment from and I just want to make sure I understand what that means.
That one I can answer. There's a specific procedure outlined within the ordinance as far as sketch plan, meetings, and so forth. And it was just to essentially not exactly follow that procedure with the application process for this.
Okay.
Not a substantive thing. We're not
It's-
looking
it's-
to avoid doing something. It's just the antiquated saldo ordinance that probably needs to be looked at again and cleaned up and get to 2022 standard. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, the process, they kind of go through the process, and some of the things are not mandatory, like a sketch plan is not mandatory. It's something that we recommend having a pre-application conference. I believe I saw a copy of another version of the plan early on and offered my comments that changed their layout slightly. So we did kind of go through the process, maybe not technically exactly bit by bit in order, but the process basically was followed. They mapped out all of the environmental restrictions before they did their layout. They tried to place the houses in areas that were cleared, as they just mentioned with that driveway.
Yeah, I think.
So it's like yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everything's out there. People have the ability to comment on and,
For administrative. and-
yeah, okay, all right. That's, I just wanted to be sure of that one. That's all. Yeah, and I guess I had comments on the tree stuff, but I think on the couple of things, it probably makes sense to come up with more specifics and have the EIC comment on it and all that kind of stuff before I waste
Yeah, that's fine.
blathering about it.
Yep.
Yeah, and Tony.
Just a question for Jim. This is on the Falls Township border. Is there any reason why Falls would have any thought about this development or one way or the other?
I wouldn't think they would.
Okay. Does anyone have any other comments, questions?
I just had a question on the shared driveway. Who's going to be responsible then for maintaining that driveway since it's shared between the two houses?
Property owners typically share it. There is a document called a shared use common driveway easement agreement that the solicitor reviews. It is recorded against both parcels, and that document spells out the obligations and responsibilities that each property owner has to maintain the driveway, what the percentage of cost allocation for improvements would be, and the like. So it's a fairly detailed document that is reviewed and approved by your solicitor before it's recorded.
And just, those are, that's all tied to the, I guess, the deed.
Yes. Yes.
Ed, related to that, shared driveway, impervious areas, what drives your stormwater runoff, right? Can you or Kristen describe the stormwater management systems, how they're designed, and who's going to ultimately have ownership of maintenance requirements and long-term O&M for each of those systems?
Sure. So we have a rain garden proposed along the frontage of Big Oak Road, which is intended to capture runoff from lots 2 and 3. There
Is that, sorry, Chris, is that what, and Jim, if you can pull that plan up again, the one that you had, I just want to make sure I'm looking at it correctly. Is that what's depicted in sort of a lighter colored green?
Yes, it was depicted in a different shade of green on the rendering that was up on the screen. So it's a small area between the house and the street along Big Oak that will have a meadow mix planting within it. So it's more of a naturalized surface along there that is intended to promote infiltration into the ground within that area, and then will discharge towards Big Oak Road into the storm system of Big Oak. And that is intended to capture lots 2 and 3, the new impervious from those lots.
Okay, so is there an HOA that's going to be set up to maintain that, or is that something that's going to be?
That will be the requirement of that individual homeowner, because that is more of an on-lot system. Even though it's collecting runoff from 2 lots, it's really entirely contained within lot 2. So that would be the responsibility of that individual homeowner.
Oh, wow. So that homeowner is taking on the stormwater management responsibilities for his 2 neighbors or her 2 neighbors?
Or the one, yes, for the neighbor to the rear of them. The lot 1, which has a secondary access, is an existing house and driveway. So there's no new impervious proposed as part of that lot. So no stormwater management is required for that first lot on Big Oak Road. So this is essentially picking up the shared driveway and the dwellings for the other 2 lots along Big Oak.
So if you were to split the drive, say as Adrian had posed there, potentially coming in, and I don't have the lot numbers in front of me, so I apologize, but the one that's basically on the corner of Elbow Lane, on the elbow really of Elbow Lane, right? If we were to come in off of Elbow Lane, that would split their impervious area, and that would cause a reworking, I guess, of the stormwater management system there.
Yes and no. The site does drain from Elbow Lane towards Big Oak Road. So those 3 lots all drain towards Big Oak, and that's a big reason why we placed that rain garden where we did, because it does naturally today collect and drain towards that location. So it, if we placed a new driveway on Elbow, it wouldn't necessarily change that because the drainage pattern would still be running towards Big Oak and towards that corner.
Would you have to grade that way and put in potentially not a ditch per se, but general grading in that direction to make sure that flows go that way after development of a driveway on the other side of the house?
We'd certainly have to make sure of that. And the grading that we currently have shown for the proposed condition does swale around both sides of the dwelling on that 3rd lot so that it does go around and then follow the drainage patterns to get towards Big Oak Road. But yes, we would certainly make sure that those drainage patterns and the proposed grading makes that work with the runoff pattern.
And are you getting, I was reading something in your PCSM plan that you weren't getting very good infiltration due to native conditions. What is it, mostly rock there? What are you running into when you do your infiltration test?
That I'd have to pull up the report to confirm what the limiting zone was there on that rain garden. We've designed that as what's called a managed release concept from DEP. Because we have the 0 rates there, it's purposely designed to maintain the criteria that the state mandates for that type of facility. So it does have an underdrain within the system. So if there is no infiltration, as things are stabilized, the drainage would collect within that underdrain and be released from the facility so that there is a way out.
Have you run this by the conservation district yet to get their review of the design on this particular rain garden?
It hasn't been submitted yet. We usually like to wait to get the first round of comments back from the township consultants, make sure there's no major changes, and then make that submission. So it would be being submitted as part of this next submission package.
Okay. And then
the
oh, go ahead, sorry.
separately, lots 4 through 6 will each have their own on-lot underground seepage pit in the rear of the houses. That's not illustrated on the rendering plan, but it is part of the grading and utility plan within the plan set. So they each have a rectangular area towards the back corner of their property that has an underground seepage pit that would collect the runoff from the house and the associated impervious areas. They would infiltrate there. We did get infiltration rates with the testing that was done at each of those locations. And then each of those would have what's considered a level spread or discharge pipe from each of those pits in order to allow the water to release at a slow pace and not concentrate that flow from the discharge.
So are those on this rendering here, is that what we're seeing as sort of the squiggly marks in the back left corner of the one lot in the middle?
Yes, exactly. That is
Okay.
the discharge pipe location for each of those. So it is on the plan view, the back left corner when you're looking at the plan for each of those lots. Because again, this portion of the property also continues to drain essentially from right to left towards Big Oak. So everything is draining towards the back left corner of each lot.
How much tree clearing do you have to do specific to those level spreaders so that one, you can install them, and 2, you don't cause any erosion around tree roots?
So for
When
those,
they
it would
discharge.
really just be a small utility trench for the installation of the pipe itself. And the level spreader, it's not a long level spreader. It's only, I believe, maybe 5 to 10 feet wide in there. So it's intended to be done without removal of specific trees for that. And that's one of the things we're looking at now that we have a tree survey complete, making sure we're working between tree canopies of those existing trees.
Okay, what type of spreader are you putting in?
It's just a stone level spreader. So
Just-
we would
okay.
have an inlet with a stone trench with perforated pipe running for a length on each of those lots. And those were all calculated based on the flows that are getting to each of those pits and releasing.
And those will also be the responsibility of the individual homeowners?
Yes, they will.
Andy, did you have any concerns about some of that stuff?
So just to answer your previous question about the rain garden, the report indicates seepage of groundwater into the pit at 30 inches below grade. and then boulder refusal or rock encountered at 56 inches below grade up by the rain garden. I did request that they do another infiltration test up by the rain garden just to see if there's any location maybe on the other side of the rain garden that could get some infiltration. The other thing that I had mentioned earlier tonight was maybe looking at pulling the level spreader back and putting it directly on top of the stone system, and then just having that come up to the surface and bubble up to the surface, and then run off from there. And I think that would be require less tree disturbance and
Smaller footprint.
yeah, smaller footprint. So they indicated they would look at that. The other thing that I have in my review letter is that I want them to provide calculations to demonstrate that they're not increasing the rate of runoff from the individual lots of lots 4, 5, and 6, as there are some portions of those lots that drain to the east, or the top of the page. There are certain areas that drain to the east, top of the page. And so I want to make sure that for those individual lots that they're not increasing the rate of runoff onto their neighbor.
What's the contour interval there? My glasses aren't that strong, sorry.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What's your contour interval there? It
I
looks
believe
fairly
it's-
flat on the
I believe
right
it's
side.
1 foot.
Contours.
1 foot?
1 foot.
Okay, so it's pretty flat around on the south side of the more southern 3 lots. Is that correct?
I wouldn't consider it flat, no. Along there, it's, there's actually, there are some steep slopes within lot 3, and it's, I have the numbers in front of me, but I would imagine that's at least a 3% slope throughout that
I'm
lawn
talking,
there.
I'm talking 4, 5, and 6. As the further away from Big Oak you get, the flatter it looks to get to me. Is that fair?
No, it's actually, so there's a high point that runs along the edge of Elbow Lane, and then it pushes everything towards the east. They are, I would not consider that flat along there. We have a pretty regular contour interval from Elbow Lane towards the east with an elevation drop of about 9 feet from front to back of each lot.
And so they're all draining towards the back of the lot, so that's why. Have you done calculations yet that show that your post is less than your pre? Or is that what Andy's asking for?
That's what he's
For each-
asking for. So we're currently in the works of doing that. We've in the post-construction management report, we've provided it based on 1 point of analysis, based on the NPDES permit requirements. So we're providing supplemental data based on Andy's request for these individual lots as well.
So you're
And
gonna,
I
ultimately,
have a-
you're gonna have what, four different discharge points as part of your stormwater management system? The rain garden and those 3 lots on the right? They're each-
Yes. Yes, is the supplemental calculation. Yes.
Now, you did actual on-site infiltration testing in the areas that you're proposing? Because I know there's a lot of boulders up along the edge of where Summit Drive is. That's sort of like the edge of the glacial deposits. And I just wanted to make sure that that was accounted for.
Yes, and it's part of the requirements of the NPDES permit as well. So we did do the testing at the actual locations and depths.
Are you proposing basements for these houses?
Yes.
Yeah, the underground stormwater management systems are located downgrade of the house, and therefore groundwater mounding underneath the earth would not be an issue for basements for the proposed houses with the clear distance that they have shown on the plan. So, And they did do infiltration testing at the locations of the underground stormwater management systems. They've got about an inch in an hour. Lot 6 has a half inch per hour.
How deep is groundwater, Andy?
It varies. On lot 6, they didn't encounter any type of groundwater, but boulder refusal, so they hit rock at 6 feet. On lot 5, they hit rock at 5 feet. And on lot 4, again, no groundwater observed. They hit rock at 5 feet.
Thanks. And Kristen, one last question. I think this is, you're in the clear here, but across Big Oak, you have the Rock Run floodplain and this is a regulated floodway over there, but it looks like I'm looking at 5-foot contours on the county website, so it looks like you're several feet above that. Are you able to confirm that
Correct.
that's
We're
correct?
not within any mapped flood hazard area.
Right, but you're also I'm thinking more about groundwater. So you're also it looks like you're also several feet above the elevation of the stream and the floodway, which normally you would have groundwater very shallow. So I think
You are
if that
correct,
cuts,
yes.
if that cuts through, that actually works in your favor. So I
Yes,
just want to
you're
make sure that's the case.
Okay, is that everything? Okay, so we're not really voting on anything tonight, correct, Jim?
That is correct. I guess if you want to open it up to public comment, now would be a good time.
Sure, I will open it up to public comment. Anyone here? One? Yep. Yep. State your name and address, please. I understand.
We cannot hear that microphone.
Okay. I feel like a rock star. Doug Marshall, 1009 North Elbow Lane, Lower Makefield. I appreciate the opportunity to throw my 2 cents in, and I understand this is not here for final approval, and so as the other gentleman just said, this is for discussion purposes only. Be that as it may, I do have some thoughts. The first is that in order for me as a member of the public, and I actually live in Yardley Crest, that's the adjacent development, I would like to have all of the associated letters and recommendations, whether they be from the EAC, the Planning Commission, or anyone else who has submitted documentation for consideration, whether it be to the developer, the engineer, or to the township. I really would like to have that just so I can share and discuss it with the neighbors, in the neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Jim, that stuff is all available online or no?
I don't currently have that posted online, but I can certainly post that online for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't sure about the schematic of the subdivision which had been shown earlier. It showed that each house had a green area around it, which looked like to me, or at least I interpreted that as lawn, as opposed to woods. Now, I can tell you, living in the development next door, that that entire area where the houses are at least planned to be developed is a wooded area. In other words, in the center of the property that has been sold is actually a fairly large meadow where there are no trees. And so, you know, to the extent, and I guess there's no, you're confirming that, right, ma'am? The lawn, I can only assume, has to involve a removal of some trees. Now, living there, being familiar with that property, I really do have to wonder, and I want to just get confirmation of this when the documentation comes in, that we're only talking about 25% of the, you know, of the trees being knocked down. Because if there's one thing I really do respect about the code, and you know, I think we'd all agree here in the room, it's that Lower Makefield Township does value the tree foliage. It does add to the quality of life. And yet, again, living there, with the exception of one house, and that would be the house number 4, which, you know, is in the center of the logging operation and therefore really doesn't have trees in it. All of the other houses, you know, the lawns will take up space where trees are located, unless perhaps some of them are located in part of that meadow. But I know 1 and 2 would be, 3 would certainly be, majority, 5 and 6, yes. And so I have to question the 25% number. I know, you know, it's interesting about in the last 10 days, I did see a survey out there, a surveyor out there. It was from Kavanaugh Surveyor. I don't know who that is. I assume he's a vendor associated with the township. But you know, he seemed to be, you know, just, I saw him, he had like a surveyor tripod and he was making calculations. And that was just in the past week or so, maybe 10 days. So I don't know if his report has even been submitted. I mean, if it hasn't, then this really does seem to be a very preliminary and tentative kind of a meeting. You know, even for purposes of a preliminary, you know, just kind of an open discussion meeting. So maybe we get some comments about that, but be that as it may, you know, I just want to confirm that certainly I, you know, feel it's very important that we comply with that 25% code number. And I look forward to looking over the documentation. And I thank you, Jim, for giving that to me. And I'll keep an eye on the website, because it's really incumbent upon myself and everybody else to be vigilant about that. As this process moves along, we'll be back and we'll just kind of bandy it about. Thank you very much.
I can answer your question. The Kavanaugh's is on behalf of the applicant, and that is the surveyor that is surveying the property. They were out recently to do the tree survey. That has been the discussion.
Okay, so okay, now I apologize, but the tree survey that Kavanaugh did they generate a report which was submitted to the township? Okay.
Part of what we're working on, the resubmission package.
Okay. Can I say, does the township have an independent vendor to just confirm? I mean, I always like to have an independent vendor to confirm people, you know, rather than just rely upon obviously somebody with, admittedly, and I don't blame them, you know, a vested interest in the outcome of you know, the individual that they hire. So how does that work? Do you just simply accept the developers, you know, report, you know, from their surveyor? I mean, do you look it over and maybe, you know, hire your own? How does that work?
Well, we do pretty much accept the professional surveyor and that they accurately depicted the trees that they had located. If they do note an inordinate number of trees as being dead or diseased and dying, we would go out and check that out just to verify and make sure that that is in fact accurate.
Well, let me just put in a request. I do want to see a copy of that report. Because if in some way it may not be accurate, again, based upon my just eyeballing it, my own personal kind of anecdotal knowledge of that property, I may want to go hire my own person. And I will do that. Because I just want to make sure everything is kosher. And we're all agreed again that we want that 25%, to be preserved. So I'd like to ask, do you know when that report will be available for the public's consumption?
It's our intention to resubmit likely this week.
Okay, and will it be online, Jim, or?
Yeah, I will work to get that available for everyone,
Okay,
all the reports and letters and everything.
great. Is this all the reports and letters here, or?
Those are all of the review letters from our consultants and volunteer committees.
Okay, again, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Marshall, on the tree report, I'll call it, I can say that our EAC will very likely review it. And we do have some folks who, even though they may not be certified arborists, are very, very knowledgeable of tree health and tree species. I know our engineer will review it as part of his review. Township staff will review it as part of their review. I'll tell you, I'm going to review it as part of my review, and that is my professional background as well. So we're going to keep a close eye on everything. So I wouldn't anticipate that, like you said, it's more of a trust but verify. But everyone's going to be keeping a close eye on stuff like this because trees and other issues are important in this township, as you know.
Yeah, and just so, I don't want to be misunderstood. I've always been very, very impressed with the integrity of everybody here on the panel and the people here in the digital virtual world. Yeah, maybe I'm jumping the gun. I didn't know that you, for example, or the EAC people were, qualified to, make that independent judgment yourselves. And, that being the case, then, I would, accept that. So thank you for adding that.
No, but I appreciate your concerns, but I think whether we have specific hired experts on here working for the township or not, we do have a very solid group of staff persons, contracted individuals like our engineer and others. And we're lucky here in Lower Makefield Township that we have one heck of a set of volunteer group, including the one you're talking to today, with some very pretty impressive CVs and backgrounds. So we get a lot of eyes that can offer all kinds of different reviews and opinions and findings on this stuff, including yourself. So that's what we're looking to do. So by no means don't feel bad about asking the question, because it's one that should be asked, but I think we have a pretty good group here.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Stramara. I live at 1103 Irving Road in Lower Makefield, and I have two concerns. The first concern the gentleman mentioned already is the traffic. The traffic coming off of William Penn Middle School will back through their parking lot up Derbyshire Road, block the connection between Derbyshire Road and Big Oak, with traffic on Big Oak attempting to move into Derbyshire from both directions. This happens every morning. It happens every afternoon, and then the traffic again reverses and tries to leave. In the afternoon, we have the additional problem with the school buses all leaving the site at the same time. They block the entrance to Derbyshire. They will then divert up Irving Road, take Esther, and block the exit from Esther onto Big Oak. And although the traffic impact from the houses that you're talking about does not seem like much, it may be enough to make this situation even more difficult than it currently is. All right. That's a problem. The second problem is the water flow. If you're familiar with the area, the houses across the street from this development on Big Oak slope down to Irving. Irving is the low point. The intersection of Irving Road and Esther and Irving Road and Derbyshire already flood out 2 or 3 times a year, to the point where the police come and block the intersections. All right, they know we don't even have to call them anymore. All right, any water that is added to that area that is not caught by those basins that cuts across the road or comes down the road and through Derbyshire is going to flood that area out more than it already is. Especially that common driveway. If the water runs down there in a heavy storm and shoots right across, you're going to flood our houses out worse than they are already. So I would hope that you would give consideration to both those factors. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Gates, 955 Big Oak Road, and I am the horse farm. Could we put up the map? The original map? Okay. I have several concerns, water being the hugest one. And I think that the systems here for water drastically underestimate the water situation on this property. Can I walk away from the mic and go to, oh, mobile. There we go. Okay, so historically, the water rushes down from the back to the front. We have a low area right here. Oh, no, I'm sorry, right here that will have a foot of water that will stay there for a week and a half after a big storm. We have right here, originally before the bike path, the Bartlett's had a pipe that went to the ditch here, and that kept that part of things fine, and things swaled to that area that kept it away from their house. When the bike path went in, the pipe was taken away from the ditch, and this has been a nightmare ever since, and was constantly running over, this is my property, into my driveway and potholing my driveway. And so what we did is we put a pipe from their low spot into my front field to drain under the driveway, so that all that water was going into my front field, but not potholing the driveway. I would love to see something that it doesn't come across, period, onto my side, or figure out how that's going to be handled. I don't think this, unless there's a lot of grading done, this is in the wrong spot for where the water goes. The water goes out this way and it runs out the driveway this way, but it doesn't tend to come to this area here. So unless it's graded to go to that area, that's the wrong spot.
Actually, looking at their plans from the rain garden, which is that dark green area.
Yep.
They actually have an outlet pipe that's going to go out to a storm drain that is located in the road.
Right. But the question is how the water's going to get to there, because the water gets to here and then goes across the driveway. It doesn't, this is a higher spot. So my point is, without some grading, it's not going to get to this grade spot.
And I can answer that. We do
Yeah.
have proposed grading that changes that. So
Okay.
there is a swale that goes around the side
gonna-
of that house and an inlet that will pick up the water and bring it into that.
And that whole low spot that tends to flood out will be raised.
Yes, because the house will be there. Yes.
Well, yeah, the house is,
Yes,
okay.
that will be higher, and there will be positive drainage away from the house and around the side towards the basin.
Okay. And then there was discussion that things run to the east. I am the east. And back here in these backwoods of my back pastures, there are several underground streams that run from this property across here. And certain times of year, you could absolutely identify a stream where you got dry, and then a whole line of wet as a stream. And so my hope would be that if you're draining things to the eastern side of these properties, that it's not going to increase the amount of water that's heading to the east across that back pasture. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I've lived on the farm for 41 years, And when I moved there, there was an old livestock fence line on this side of the property and on the other side of the property where the reserve at Yardley is. The fence line on the far side, there's still a couple of posts remaining, is absolutely true blue on the border. And for 40 years, and the fence was probably 30 years old when I moved there, for 40 years, the Bartletts and I have considered that the fence line that was here was the property line. My driveway is probably 2 foot on my side of the fence line. Well, now we have a survey. And it appears that the property line is going right through from a, it's fine. The driveway is clear down at this end, but from about here to here, right past the house, it looks like maybe 2.5 feet of my paved driveway is on the other property. And there is room for us to move the driveway over, but we'd have to cut down 2 well-established trees. And one of the things that I'm curious about is if there, since this is not going to be someone's yard, it's going to be woods, if there was any way to maybe have an easement for that little bit. I mean, we're talking, it's probably 100 foot by, starts as a couple of inches and goes out to a couple of feet. If there was a way to have an easement that we didn't have to completely relocate our driveway for this to happen. So just,
I do have one little question though.
yeah,
You said the driveway is over the property line. Is that based on a field marker that you saw out there, or is that just?
well, we've always used the fence line. I mean, as neighbors, we've always considered the fence line was the property line and the driveway is well inside the fence line. But when our first clue was, because my farm is in conservation easement, and when we surveyed for the conservation easement, the pin down here is well on, safe on the driveway. But I noticed that right about here, there was a nail that they put
That's why I was asking.
about 2 inches in on the pavement. So we figured 2 inches, not a problem. But now that they've put a couple more markers in, and you can see it on the picture, that my driveway is clearly over, just in that one section.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that was actually based on a field marking.
Oh, yeah.
You can't really trust the aerial photo. They can be off by.
Yeah, no, we don't really know. I mean, that's the next step, is to really establish exactly where the line is. It runs a little bit crooked to the building, so it's hard to tell. But that is a concern that somehow this has to be dealt with. And so the options as to how to deal with it, I would be open to suggestions. So, and the only other thing is trees. I'm assuming this just looks like trees. There are a lot of dead trees and vines and junk in these woods. Is the plan to clean up the junk? I'm all for it. There are some beautiful trees, but there's a lot of junk. So, all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Before you step away,
Yes.
you might want to have a conversation with the property owner about the driveway issue offline.
Yep.
It's not really a township issue.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Help? Someone else?
Good evening. My name is Tom Tracy, 202 South Esther Lane. I have one of the properties that's right on Big Oak that borders behind there. Just have a couple of questions. Like Karen mentioned, the water, when you go along after the bike path was put in along Big Oak between our property and the Bartlett's, after a nice heavy rain, it stays there for a couple of days. Okay. So, and it does run downhill. And it's very soupy. So I would just ask you to be mindful of that, that anything that exacerbates or adds to that is not going to be a nice situation. So on the right-hand side of the existing driveway, what kind of adjustments is going to be made to the land? Is it going to be additional fill? Maybe I should direct this to the developer, Jim. You tell me. But is there additional in the existing driveway right now? Is there additional where they park in their cars right now in the grass? Is there additional raising or lowering, or how's that going to be dealt with?
The existing structures will be demolished and a new home will be put in place there. We're using the same driveway and the same curb cut, but there will be some grading changes and modifications to the lot.
So will to the right of the driveway, to be very anal and specific, we're on the western side of the driveway as you're heading south. Will there be additional grading that's done?
So the driveway itself sits essentially on the property line. It's very close to the property line, so we can't go off the property to do grading on the adjacent property. So we would just be working within the subject property.
I'm just asking. You're talking in circles, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No, and I'm just trying to understand it. There's only.
So I'm looking at the existing driveway, right?
Yeah.
Which if you look at the existing driveway right now, that's going to have to be lowered because there's a significant amount of if John were here or if the Bartlett's daughter were here, they would say that that's never been easy for them to get out and that the bike path only exacerbated it. And there's all kinds, the pitch on it is just ridiculous. So, but I'm concerned about anything being developed on the western side of the driveway. And if there's nothing, there's nothing.
Nothing being developed. There is revising the grading of that driveway, but nothing being developed to the west. of-
So to be mindful of the level of grading, all that's going to do is just slope it down. Is there any rain garden that's going to be capturing anything on that side of the property at all?
There is not on that side.
Okay.
So
So
the
hence my
is
concern.
That the driveway might, if it's raised up, may block the water and keep it more on your property. Is that the concern?
And it's going to run down into it's undisturbed woods. That's kind of like, I don't know, what's the fancy phrase for it, between our homes. It's like buffer type. Okay. So if you were to, after the rain, you were to look in there and then you were to look along, there's literally a ditch that has been formed over time. From the bike path where the water does, and it's all the way back in the woods. It takes about a week for it to dry out, assuming there's nothing. I'm concerned that there's going to be more coming my way, and that's really what my main objective to communicate and articulate here is this evening. Okay.
Understood. And the yard itself for the grading of that lot will be redone so that there is a nice slope and positive drainage throughout. And a new storm inlet is proposed to capture that front lawn area and take it to the stormwater basin that we talked about on the other lot.
Okay. To the front of number one, correct?
Number two.
Number
Front
two,
of Number two.
front of number two.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep,
Adrian, can I ask a question?
sure.
I've been hearing a lot of comments about, ponded water and I think soupy ground has been mentioned. A few underground streams were called out, certain areas. We didn't hit any groundwater or anything, but it's putting up a few flags in my head that I'm wondering if there's been a wetland delineation or anything like that completed at the site by a wetlands biologist, or if it's just a surveyor going out and doing a topographic survey.
Yes, we've had a wetlands delineation and there are no wetlands on the property. That was done as part of the PNDI receipt. So that was submitted for clearances for the PIND, I believe, as well as provided to the township with our initial submission.
So and I'm not trying to be rude here, but PIND and wetlands delineation have nothing to do with each other. PIND is just an online database search. You put in your
We know that, Dan.
locations and whatnot, and it spits out whether or not you have threatened and endangered species hits. It has nothing to do with wetlands at all.
We understand that, Dan. We know.
That's not how it was presented though. So I just want to make sure everyone else understands that.
We know.
The HIPAA came back, requested a wetlands delineation, which is what was provided to help with the clearance for that.
I've never seen a PIND come back with a request for a wetlands delineation.
Dan, we know they're not the same.
I know, but she just said that a PIND
She did
request.
not. She just said a wetlands evaluation was done contemporaneously with submitting the PIND request. That's all.
I thought I heard that the PIND receipt came back requesting a wetlands delineation. If I misheard that, I just want to make sure I heard correctly, because that's what I heard, and those are.
Yes, it was part of the materials resubmitted to get the clearance for the PIND.
So you got a PIND hit? There was an agency that came back and gave you a hit on a specific species?
Yes, a potential hit, and we did get the clearance letter for that.
Was that a bog turtle because of the county?
I don't have the paperwork in front of me. I apologize with the specifics for that.
So there was a potential hit for threatened endangered species habitat in this from one of the agencies, whether state agency or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, where a wetlands delineation would have, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but this is what it sounds like to me. So there was a specific species called out, like it sounds like it was probably a wetlands dependent species. So there was correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, please. And then there was a wetland delineation completed to see if there was potential habitat there for that species. And then that was resubmitted to one of these agencies to get a clearance letter from them. Is that?
Yes, it was part of the compilation of photographs, existing features, a wetlands delineation that we included to resubmit for that clearance letter.
Okay. And Jim, do we have all of that in our file?
Yes, we would have submitted it as part of the planning module mailer package.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to see that one because that, and was there, as a follow-up to that, was the wetland delineation ever submitted to the Army Corps for jurisdictional determination, or is it just based on whoever did the delineation on their report?
No, it was not submitted to Army Corps.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm just hearing a lot of anecdotal comments about features that sound very, very wet that would be potentially indicative of wetland features on the site. So I think we should take a look at that report to make sure that all the bases were covered.
Okay,
Am I up?
you're up.
Thank you. My name is Gary Pogler. I'm at 1108 Big Oak Road on the opposite side of Big Oak at the intersection of Esther Lane. I've lived in that residence for now 48 years. When we bought it, we had a driveway that entered out onto Big Oak Road. And after about 5 years of living there, we got clearance to reroute the driveway to Esther Lane. So we no longer have to back out onto Big Oak Road. It's done wonders for my longevity, and I'm glad we did it. Having the opportunity to step up here, I can now see the map a little better, and the driveway that you've got two driveways that are coming out onto Big Oak Road, and they are from what I can see attached to the houses in such a way that the drivers are not going to be backing out onto Big Oak, but rather they'll be coming out head first. And that takes care of a lot of the concern that I had because of what I just described about my own experience. And further, in looking at it, it looks to me as though if I were a builder, there's no way I could do it any differently. You can't take those three houses that are closest to Big Oak and in any practical way, I think, access Elbow Lane to make it make any kind of sense. The owners would have to do a lot of driving to get back to Big Oak Road, which inevitably is probably how they're going to conduct most of their daily travel. So with that, I'll say that I'm satisfied. I'm not as likely as I thought I might be to witness carnage on Big Oak Road.
How you doing? Glen Grafe, 1102 Big Oak, directly across from Lot 1. Well, first of all, yeah, drainage. That's the runoff. I watch it. It fills up. You're going to have even more. What's that, a 3,000 square foot house? What you're knocking down is what, 1,000 foot square house? There's more surface. That one gentleman said the river. It is a river. Come through those woods. Might not have picked it up now because of drought. You know what's going on. But that water lays there. Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's a big puddle, just enough to cover the crest of Big Oak. And it's coming right down my driveway. It's going to head right down the backyard and into my neighbor, which it sometimes already does. So we're already starting with that. Traffic, that's always, your daylight, your best days are when school ends. At, the last day of school, we celebrate. Because now it's pulling out in the driveway, you got nothing to worry about. Certain times of that day, I'm pulling out my driveway and I nose out. Still waiting. Sometimes I can make a right turn. I'll go into Irwin and I'll have to go around because I can't make the left. So you're going to have a lot of that, something that they have to look after. There are a lot of trees, ash trees. I mean, that's a disease. People burn ash wood. You're going to disease more trees. And you have to burn diseased wood already. So I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to put trees up in front. That retention, that's not a retention basin. That's just was it a pond or something? I mean, is that what that is? A puddle, or what's it called? The garden, rain garden.
Could you
there's-
explain what that is?
Yeah, there's like 2 houses on Big Oak that have their own retention basin right now that were just built past Stony Hill and their front lawn. Is that someone's?
Similar in the sense that the rain garden will have a meadow mix. It can have additional plantings in it. It's intended to collect and infiltrate that water back into the ground to help replenish filter some water quality, as well as provide some groundwater recharge to the area. This, as we had talked about, didn't have good results in regards to rates. So we do have a pipe beneath the surface that's able to collect that water and pipe it out so that we don't have sitting water at the surface.
Okay, so is this rain garden have a depth to it? Is it a? Okay,
There'll be a depression along there, but again, a meadow mix, so natural light at the surface.
so it's supposed to take care of, I guess, that lot 2 and 3 and the back part of the farm and the back part of that empty space and not part of 4.
Correct, yes.
Well, that ought to be interesting. Let's see how that works. When it doesn't work, then what happens? If it's who's going to fix when we have problems afterwards?
Well, that'll be on the developer to make sure that it's operational before it's turned over to the township. Although we're not taking.
But you're not going to sign off on something
Before it's signed
before
off on. Yeah.
exactly. That's where you won't know if you don't have the weather. You get the 1-year storm that you don't have for 5 years, and then what do we have? We have problems. You're gonna have more problems. You're right. You're right by the school. A lot across the street that's vacant. It's been vacant for the longest time in the Curtis Derbyshire. That's all wet. I know that's all wetlands. That's why no one's built on it, I think. This guy on 966, he's gonna have a driveway right across the street from his driveway. Where's the headlights on his house, That's a state road too. Is PennDOT getting informed about any of this, or they don't have to be, or they have no questions, or?
Get a PennDOT permit for the proposed driveway.
Okay, just get that access. Yeah. Other than that, that's it. It's a tricky one. Good luck.
Hi, my name's Lisa Tenney. I live in Yardley Crest neighborhood. I reside with my husband at 156 Pinnacle Circle. And I moved here from Madison, Connecticut 5 years ago. And of course, what brought me to Yardley Crest and the neighboring neighborhoods was the beauty of the neighborhood, the sidewalks, large lot sizes, mature trees, right? And we have those now in my neighborhood. And it's also those large trees provide privacy. So I hope, people say, oh, it's only 6 houses, well, that's 6-fold increased housing density, right? How about if your body temperature went up 6-fold, or cancer rates? It's significant. Yeah. So anyway, I just had some suggestions going forward for whatever it's worth. But I do go by this or this new development every day, just like Cricket Preserve. And that's not insignificant to see a property being developed. It's a big inconvenience for neighborhoods. And we know there's a lot of traffic on Big Oak. Also, before I go to my suggestions, I just want to say no waiver is normal. No waiver should be granted, especially for the tree ordinance whatsoever. And I'm holding you accountable for holding the ordinance. That's why we have them. There's no substitute for trees. Rain gardens are nice, but they don't absorb CO2. They don't make oxygen. They don't provide seeds and habitat for all that live in a community. They're aesthetically pleasing and they provide us with oxygen. And that's not insignificant. And again, those roots, even of non-natives, they're there serving a purpose. They prevent soil erosion. And we see that slope, if you could please, I'd like the topographic map that you showed us with the plots, so I can show everybody who's not familiar. Jim, the first slide. So I only know this because I walk here all the time. It's
Yeah, bring the microphone with you. Sorry.
Oh, all right. Okay, so here again, everybody talked about the water issue. That's because this is a significant slope. I know because I ride my bike and it is hard to get here. And now I know where all those rocks come because you now tell me it's glacier formation, meaning there's underground bedrock. So there has to be underwater water that, and this summer was totally different, that runs probably all different directions. But we all know water goes to the lowest area, as she so eloquently stated, and that is Irving Drive. They do have, I think it's Brock Creek back there. So here we have now impervious surface, impervious surface, impervious surface, impervious surface. Trees taken down, soil erosion, right? Well, all that water. I you know, I have a little bit of a slope in my backyard. I face Stony Hill Road, kind of over here. I have a sump pump. On a normal fall, spring, it's on all the time. My friend Doug, he's over here. Not here, not on Irving. He's here. He had a horrible flood in his basement. So again, that slope isn't insignificant, and the water, certainly, I didn't even realize that impact until kind of today. So no tree waiver. I think you got to work that out. Now, the other part is the traffic, right? So Big Oak, someone explained the traffic, right? And it's bad, right? And you have both ways, morning and all afternoon. The other problem that is here, this is a blind, right, curve. So you have a stop sign here, and it's called elbow lane for a reason, because the curve is a 90-degree angle. So when I was looking at the plans, I thought, well, let's reduce the driveways. It would make sense to me to have just one driveway and this shared, right? And this one shared, because you have the existing driveway here for where the trees, they stored wood, right? So there is a place that everybody knows about already that you could use, and you could do a shared driveway here. And then you reduced all this going into Big Oak and this blind curve. Because remember, you have, this is pretty busy here too. Because everybody, it cuts off. This is a whole huge neighborhood in Falls. So everybody is using this road to get through to the school. So that's just an idea. And when I lived in Madison, I had a shared driveway, and there are advantages, right? You can share plowing expense. You can share if there's ditches, you share the driveway and the expense of maintaining it. It's just an observation when I was kind of looking, because it is a problem. And the other thing is with the trees, you didn't pay that much money for the property. Okay, so maybe, and a lot in the discussion, a lot of developers try to make concessions. Why don't you leave one, do 5 houses, right? And leave the woods to help buffer your new development and us. Maybe that will save the trees and the tree bank. Maybe it'll help the erosion. So those are just my suggestions. Thank you for listening, and thank you for having the public input.
I think it looks like it's it in the room. Is there still someone online?
Yeah, online we have Scott.
Okay. Scott? Are you there?
Okay, yes, I am. To just introduce myself, I'm Scott Bracken. I live at 317 Walton Drive. That is the house in the corner of Walden and Elbow, and with a property adjacent to what's your lot number 6. Now, the question I have, I actually have a couple things. One is, since everybody has been talking about the water, I want you all to know we're at the other end of where everybody's legitimate concern has been about the water running down to Big Oak. I'm at the opposite end of this property. Ourselves and our neighbors in this area all have sump pumps and French drains in our basement, because historically we have had, even being up on top of a hill, we have had a lot of, every time there was a big storm, we'd have water in our basement. And for some reason, once they put that Freeman Farm development in, that seemed to help things out. I'm not sure why. Anecdotally, we're not adjacent to that property. We're not far away from it, but that seemed to help things out a little bit. The lots 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, I know you're talking about putting basements in there. Those basements better have sump pumps and French drains, because they're going to need them. I don't care what your the research that you've done, the different assessments that have been made. I tell you, and everybody that lives around here will tell you, and has been telling you tonight, there is water underground. Water is an ongoing problem. My other concern, it isn't in reference to the water, but it is in reference to how much of a privacy barrier there's going to be between our property and lot number 6. The house is fairly close to the to where our house is going to be. We're going to be, more so than any other existing house, going to have privacy issues as far as looking out our back window and seeing a driveway almost right across the fence. There doesn't appear to be much. Yes, it doesn't appear to be much of a space between the property line and where the driveway in the house is. And actually, on the lot number 6's property, along the property line, the first part of it really, even though the area is wooded, that particular little area is somewhat cleared out. So my basic concern is how much of there's just a thin sliver of wooded area left between our back fence and the driveway and the house on lot number 6. And it really is going to be a major negative impact for us in terms of our sense of privacy, especially as compared to what I see any of the other existing residences are going to have to live with.
Do they know approximate how much space?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I don't know how much space that is, but it doesn't look like it's going to be more than 5 feet. And yeah, so you have an individual tree going here and there, going along the line. It doesn't really isn't much of a privacy barrier. And then the third question I have is in reference to, you were mentioning a seepage pit behind the properties, at least 5 and 6, and maybe 4. I'm not familiar with what that is. What is a seepage pit? And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Sure, and I can answer that question. A seepage pit is a type of stormwater facility. It is an underground, essentially a stone pit that has clean stone. It has a perforated pipe within the pit itself, and it is wrapped in filter fabric surrounding the entire pit area. The intention for that is to filter the water through the clean stone to be able to provide water quality and infiltrate some of that water back into the ground to provide groundwater recharge. With that, there's an overflow pipe that allows for discharge from the facility for any of the larger storms for discharge point.
Okay.
Where will that run? The overflow.
So aside from that, like I say, one of the main concerns in this, I'm echoing what the other neighbors of this property are saying, and that is water is a problem. on this property. You know, it's you can't. It seems to there has been some concern paid towards that, but it seems to be they seem to have minimized the property and made some certain accommodations for it and everything. It is I don't think the accommodations you made seem to be adequate based on what I experienced in real life.
Yardley Crest has water in their basement.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole area over here, and Yardley Crest is one of the recent people that was just up there at the podium was from Yardley Crest Development, and they have water runoff problems over there too. I mean, it's just common to this area. So I don't know what it is. I'm not familiar with. I've been with what the studies say in terms of underground streams or aquifers or high water tables, whatever it is. I haven't studied any of that. But I have seen my basement. So anyhow, that's pretty much it.
Do they know approximately what the border's going to
Oh,
be?
what would the distance be between the driveway and that property, the property line, in lot number 6?
On the plan, it measures approximately 15 feet from the edge of the driveway to the property line.
That's 15 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
Correct.
On your diagram, compared to other things, it doesn't look like it would be 15 feet. It seems to be narrower. It seems to be a narrower than the actual driveway itself. I was assuming the driveway itself would be like 10 feet. Maybe I don't know, of course, but I was just assuming like a typical single lane driveway, would be 10 to 12 feet. And that strip of land seems to be, at least by the diagram, seems to be narrower than the driveway.
Good, than what he said.
So it seemed to be less than 15 feet.
I just measured it on the plan. So as
Okay.
they have it.
That's what it measures on the plan? Okay.
Good.
Because we're gonna, Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
Up next for public comment, Cheryl.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Dacey, and I'm located at 4 Williams Lane, which is off of Big Oak Road, not far from the Citgo and parallel to Makefield Road. I have received several notices recently regarding, they are notice to interested property owners regarding several proposals in the area. Obviously, this one impacts me, as well as several others that we've received. In that letter, paragraph 4 details requirements to participate. There's one I received I believe Saturday, that is of enormous concern, not just to me, but probably I've heard from every neighbor I have here regarding changing the zoning and so forth. This one also affects me, the one that's on the agenda today, as well as a recent home that was built not far from us. In the letter, paragraph 4 details requirements to participate. You must become a party to the proceedings. Can you please confirm the steps to participate as party if you oppose or have questions or concerns regarding any specific project?
Actually, I think what they're referring to, they got notice of a zoning hearing board application for the Zabeta Foundation, which is further down Big Oak Road towards Makefield Road. And they're actually requesting a few variances to change some of the uses and the mixes of that. That is something that is not a matter for the Planning Commission currently. It may come back to the Planning Commission in the future, depending on what ultimately they're doing. If you'd like to contact me tomorrow or email me at jimm@lmt.org, I could send you the information on what that letter meant and how you can participate in that proceeding that I believe is coming up a week from tomorrow.
Right. You will just be, there's a number of residents from Williams Lane and from other locations that plan to attend that meeting. And Jim, I must say that you were my hero in 2019 when Zubaydah Foundation cut down dozens of trees and brought in multiple dump trucks full of rocks and gravel. And when I asked them what they were doing, they said that they were creating a picnic area. But when about 40 cars parked there as a makeshift parking lot, some of them 3 to 4 feet from my back fence, which is a chain link fence,
Excuse me.
facing in, right? You were able to come out and help me with something. So
All right. If you
that was
could-
not approved.
All right, that's not what we're covering tonight. If you could, please follow up with Jim tomorrow and he can help with that, but this is all a little bit new to me, so just trying to get through the agenda of the meeting.
Yeah, it's a different application
Okay.
and I could send you information as I
So
will
once
to
you
several other
email
residents.
somebody, so once you email Jim, you have the ability to oppose that proposal.
Yeah, anyone is welcome to that meeting who got notice and can provide any comments or an input at that zoning hearing board meeting a week from Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any more online? Okay,
Yep, we have James
One more
online
online.
for public comment.
thank you.
Hello?
Hello,
Hello?
please state your name and address, please.
Yes, it's Jim Dixon. I'm at 1001 Summit Drive. I've been an engineer for 35 years, and I've got some questions about setbacks, trees, water, traffic studies, and also more clarification on the endangered species conversation. So let me start with the water issue. We live across the street from the proposed development, and as the lady earlier talked about, some pumps run all the time. I literally put in a generator, auxiliary generator, to cover my sump pump because many times when we have storms, the power will go out and the basement has flooded. So again, the concern about water, whether there's underground streams or what is there, I can't tell you, but somebody better do a really good study on what's there. And I can tell you from the buildings that I've built in the past, I'm not real comfortable with a drainage pit, depending on how big that pit is, depending on a 100-year rain. I'm not sure that's going to cut it. So we need to do some real digging in to make sure that that's going to solve the problem for the 5 and 6. As well as as other people talked about, the water from that property runs down that driveway onto Elbow and literally washes stones across the road. And so therefore, it just is indication that there's a heck of a lot of water on that property that's coming across that road as well as underground. So I don't know who's done the study, but I certainly wouldn't mind taking a look at who's doing it and having one of you guys or gals check it and make sure it's up to snuff. That's my first concern. Second concern is the number of trees that are in that property. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that there's a limit of how many trees you can cut down in Bucks County and the diameter of the trees. Certainly, there's plenty of trees on that property that have been there a long, long time, and I would hope that you, the supervisors, are trying to make sure we save as many of those trees as we can. Because if a builder comes in and says, well, I'll replace them with other trees, there's a big difference between a tree that's 30 inches in diameter and a stick tree they're going to put in that's 3 or 4 inches in diameter. So I hope that there's some kind of a management rule and somebody that's going to really watch over this so that we don't accidentally get a whole bunch of trees cut down that don't need to be there, that need to be there. So that's one of my concerns, as well as the aesthetics across the street from myself and other people that are in the neighborhood of those trees makes a huge difference in the value of the properties that we have. And putting this development in certainly will detract from the value of my property. I guarantee that. So that's the second thing we'll talk about. Question also is the setback. What is the setback on these houses?
Are you requesting all setbacks?
No, on the 5 and 6 for just now.
The side yard setback is a 15-foot setback.
So the house is only 15 feet from the road, from the sidewalk?
No, I'm sorry. So that's a front yard setback. It is a 30-foot front yard setback required, but they are all greater than the minimum required setback from the road.
Okay, with all the property that you have in the back of that, I would appreciate it, and I think it would be smart, also for the homeowners that you have, to give them a little bit more front yard and keep as many of the trees as you can in the front to help with the aesthetics of that yard. I mean, my opinion in this whole thing is everybody's talking about with the water and runoff and just the aesthetics of the gentleman that spoke earlier. You know, you got one too many houses on this property. But that I understand that's a financial conversation, and I know that you're all into it to make as much money as you can. So I get that. But I think that you should really consider that you might have one too many houses in this game and reevaluate that plan. So also, has anybody done a true traffic study on this property?
A traffic study is not required under ordinance for a plan that conforms to the ordinance. So in other words, this is a by right plan, provided all the calculations work out correctly. There's nothing that would require a traffic study for these 5 new homes.
6 new homes.
Well, there's one existing home, so it's 5 new homes and the replacement of one existing. So it's 5 new car trips a day.
So there really is no requirement in our township that says when you put a new development in, you can't see how it will impact the traffic, especially with a school across the street.
That is correct. Not for a 5-lot subdivision.
I think that's a mistake. The other thing is the conversation we talked about with sump pumps. There's more here for water than you guys are realizing, as everybody's talking about. So I don't know what studies you've done, but I think you need to go back and relook at those studies and really understand whether you've got streams under here or what's going on. Because sure as heck, when you start disturbing this property, you know that's going to affect the flow of any water that's underground. So that's not going to only just impact these houses, but it's going to impact everybody that's around them. So I hope that there's something in the process that says if the impact is substantial to other properties, that the builder is liable to make sure that they take care of the properties adjacent to this new development. The last thing I got is I think the gentleman that was talking about the wetlands and the endangered species conversation was cut off, because I know I could see he was watching on TV. He was trying to talk. I would like some clarification and somehow get into the records that there has been a wetland study that's been done and that there is no endangered species in that area. I didn't get that clarification in any of the conversations that were provided, and I think it's important to make sure that that's in the records to make sure that that does not brush under the rug. Last thing is, what is the requirement for cutting down trees in Bucks County? What is the rule for this new property? What's the ordinance say?
What are the rules for cutting down? How many trees can you cut down?
Yeah, what's the percentage of trees that you can cut down, and what diameters are you allowed to cut? Because I was told
our ordinance has a. Would you like an answer? Okay, the ordinance allows for 25% of the woodlands on a site to be removed. the caliper of the trees, we don't have necessarily a requirement of what size trees can be removed. We do want the tree study, which the applicant will provide, so that if there's some trees that we can save that are more beneficial and other trees that are more beneficial to remove as being smaller, less desirable species, that we can slightly alter the layout based on what that tree survey shows. And ultimately, the applicant is required under ordinance to replace trees, and that replacement number is based on the caliper of tree removed. The higher the larger the tree, more trees need to be removed. And of course, they are asking for a waiver from that. But once they do the tree survey, we'll be able to better ascertain exactly how many trees are being removed, how many are proposed to be planted, and how many replacement trees they are short of our ordinance.
Okay. Well, I would highly recommend and also be a huge proponent to adjusting any of the ordinance on the number of trees that the developer can take out. I think that, you know, we're in an environmental crisis in this country, and conversations are over and over again about how many trees need to be planted to take good solid trees that have been around for a lot of years that are healthy and they're gonna continue to grow, and allow somebody to cut more trees down is a huge mistake. So I want to go on record as making sure that everybody's aware that somebody needs to be watching and really making sure that we follow the ordinance, at least, if not tighten it up some.
And I just may want to point out that you may recall that the Board of Supervisors did lower the threshold for the amount of trees that could be removed, I believe, from 30% to 25%. So we did tighten up our ordinance several years ago to allow less trees to be removed. And I guess, Kristen, he also had asked a question, but didn't give you an opportunity to answer about the wetlands. A wetlands delineation was done, correct?
Correct.
And there are no endangered species? Thank you.
I didn't understand. Say it again. I didn't hear the answer to those two questions.
There are no wetlands or endangered species on the property.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
we have to caveat that by the fact that that's what their consultant did, a wetland delineation that was provided. However, it hasn't been reviewed by any regulatory agencies to confirm that.
Is that that information going to be open to the public? Because that review is pretty critical.
All
Agreed.
plans, reports, and studies will be posted on the website in the near future, probably after they revise their plans and resubmit, so everyone's looking at the most current set of plans and reports.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's important. Again, I would request for them to either look at reducing one of these houses, or, you know, you guys talk about how they can reduce one of these houses, and also look at the setbacks off of Big Oak and push them back even further. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
No further public comment online.
Okay, all right. Lisa has had something to say. She's been waiting. So just be quick.
Yes, I do.
Name again.
Oh, Lisa Tenney, 156 Pinnacle Circle. I just want to make sure I get the name of the surveyor. I have my concerns that he was surveying trees. He didn't have any licensed arborist on his tree. He just was putting up pink flags, you know, the day after the tag sale.
Just so you know, this is not yet.
Oh, okay.
Due.
Okay.
When they revise their application.
Okay.
And they submit it with all the documents, including the wetlands delineation study, the review from the traffic engineer. All of that will be uploaded to the website for public access by Mr. Majewski's department.
Okay.
This is just a prelim look over.
Okay, so I do want them to hire and I want the credentials of the arborist who examines each tree.
And you don't have the authority to impose that.
No, I just, you know, you
Yeah, we
can have
understand
anyone,
that.
right?
I
You can
understand.
have Anybody. Anybody cuts down trees.
But Mr. Majewski did say any report that's submitted
Okay,
will be reviewed by the township to ensure that what is being requested for removal is a damaged or diseased tree.
so I'm a scientist and we measure and,
Yeah.
yeah, so we measure and inventory. It's the way it's done, and you have to be trained.
So, just to respond to Ms. Tenney, I think, Mr. Majewski, you can probably answer this better than I can. But within our ordinances, there is language to the effect that the townships, something along the lines of the township's tree expert or a certified arborist has to be completing this type of survey. Is that, he's on mute. I'm not sure if he had to step away, but we do have language in our ordinance to that effect, which is that's the spirit of the ordinance. Jim, can you clarify that? So people are
I would
aware.
need to check to see exactly what it says.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. I feel safe to say when this comes through again, this is not the last time we're going to talk about trees. So I think we discussed at the beginning of the meeting that the discussion around the trees and the tree plan and any sort of waivers that might be requested, we're going to hold off on really discussing about until we have more finalized and firmed up plans, because they're still working through some things.
Yeah, and if, just for the general public, if the applicant gets the plans back into us like within a week or so, it's possible they could be back for the October meeting, which I believe is October 11th, maybe, the second Monday in October. If we don't have enough time to have everyone review it, then it would be the meeting in November. So everyone just pay attention. The agenda will be posted probably the Thursday before the Monday meeting. October 10th is actually the date. Sorry.
About trees and water. Okay, is that it? Anyone have anything else?
Hey, Adrian.
Yeah.
I would just, for the applicant, I don't see him on the screen anymore, but for the applicant, when you look at if you could, as you go through and look at your design and beef up some of your reports and whatnot, if you can take a look at your PCSM report specifically and make sure that it's very clear that your approach is going to be meeting both the quality and the quantity requirements, both the township and the state, because there's a few, I don't think this was your intent, but there's a few statements in here that are almost contradictory in how they're stated. So I just want to make sure that it's very clear that you're going to be able to meet the very specific DEP requirements.
Understood.
Okay. All right, unless somebody has something else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Who said?